thing I forgot. Right? Okay. So uncompressed development version. So here is jQuery. Let me copy that and paste it in the file. Alright, and in our HTML page, let us simply add a reference to the jQuery file. Let us simply add a reference to the jQuery file. Now, what jQuery does? jQuery makes your DOM manipulation a little easy. That's all. Okay, so right. So type equal to /notes. Right. jQuery makes your DOM manipulation a little easy. It is a library for manipulating DOM nodes. Right. It is a library for manipulating DOM nodes. And what do you do? I mean, when I say manipulating DOM nodes, what are all the things that you do? So to do that, what I will do is, let us take a simple problem, solve that problem, and there we can understand what are all the things that you typically do in order to solve that problem, and let's see where jQuery can help us in that particular regard. Now, what we are building is a plain simple greeting application. The application is going to greet the user. So the user has to enter the name, right? The user has to enter a name, and he will have to click a button that says greet, right? That says greet, and when he clicks it, you are going to display a message in a div. When he clicks it, you are going to display a message in a div. Okay, so here is our HTML page. Let me load the HTML page. Now I said value equal to greet. I said value equal to greet. There you go. Right. So we have a simple page that has a text box, a button, and a div. The div is where we are going to display the message. So message here. So this is where we are going to display the message. Okay, very good. Now what we want to do, when the user clicks a button, when the user types something in the text box and clicks a button, the message has to be displayed here, right? That is a goal. Now in order to do that, what are all the things we need? Right? Look at this. To solve this particular problem, first of all, I should be able to locate the button. Number two, I should be able to attach a click handler to the button. And then let me comment it out, because if it is anything other than this, okay, so attach a click event handler to the button. And what else I want to do? In the click event handler, I want to locate the text box and then get the value, and then create a message, create a greet message. And number 6, I want to display the message in div with the ID div message, right? So these are all the steps that we want to perform. Now all this involved download, right? Locating the button, attaching a click event handler, locate the text box, getting the value, creating a greet message. Out of these 6 steps, right, except step number 5, everything involves the downloads. Now that is where exactly jQuery comes into picture. So jQuery gives you built-in functions using which you can perform all these actions, right? So how does it give you that particular functionality? What you can do is in jQuery offers only one function, right? Only one top level function called jQuery. Okay, it is just one function called jQuery. But to this, you see here, you can pass a selector as an argument. So what can be a selector? There are several selectors that you can pass. So a selector can be a DOM node, it can be a string, it can be an array of DOM nodes. It can be an array of DOM nodes. It can be a function, right? A selector can be any of this, and jQuery can automatically understand what you are passing. Now let us try passing a DOM node to this. What we will do, we'll take the text box. I'll say where text name is equal to document.getElementById of text name. Okay, I got it. Now I invoke the jQuery function by passing the reference of the DOM node. Now when I do that, the jQuery function returns an object, right? It returns an object. Typically, it is what you call as the jQuery object. It is a jQuery object. Okay, it is a jQuery object. So what is this object? So if I have to give you a pictorial representation of what is this object, right? So this object is this, assuming that this is the object that it returns. Now this internally contains the DOM node that you passed, right? So assume that this is the DOM node that you have passed. Okay, now it internally maintains the reference of the DOM node, and then on top of this it exposes a lot of methods, right? The object exposes a lot of methods. Now the beauty about these methods is that when you call these methods, right, the internal DOM node is manipulated accordingly, right? So these are all the methods, these are all the APIs, and when you call these methods, the internal DOM node is manipulated accordingly. That's all. So this is your jQuery object, right? This is your jQuery object, and when you create the jQuery object, you get when you call the jQuery function, you get a jQuery object that internally maintains the reference of the DOM node, and that exposes a lot of methods using which you can manipulate the DOM node. Like say for example, you have one method called show. When you call show, this DOM node will be shown. Now you can also call hide. When you call hide, then the DOM node will be hidden. Now you can say for example, remove, then the DOM node will be removed. Now you have another function called the click, using which you can attach a click event handler to that particular DOM node, right? You can say fade out. Now what will happen? The DOM node will be faded out. Like this, there are loads and loads of functions that are methods of the jQuery object, and when you invoke them, you can manipulate the DOM node accordingly. Right? When you invoke them, you can manipulate the DOM node accordingly. Let's look at here. We already have the jQuery object. Let us do a console.dir of the jQuery object. So this is the big gray circle that I drew. Okay. Now when you further expand this, you see it internally maintains the reference of the DOM node that you have passed. Right? So this is this diamond that I have drawn. And now where are all the methods? You see underscore underscore proto underscore underscore. We have all the methods. Now these are all the methods using which you can manipulate the DOM node. For example, look at this. I can say jQueryObject.hide. Now the text box will be hidden. Now I would say jQueryObjects.show. Now the text box will be shown. Now I want to access the values. So you can say jQueryObject.val. When you call this, it gives you the value. Now I want to set a value. You can say .val of something. Now something will be set in the text box, right? Now like this, you can manipulate the contents of the you can manipulate the DOM node. Say for example, I want to attach a click event handler to this. So how do I do that? I can say jQueryObject.click a function. You can say console.log text box is clicked. Text box is clicked. So you pass a function as an argument to the click method, which will automatically attach a click event handler to the text box. Now look at this. I am clicking it. You see it says text box is clicked, right? So like this, I can attach events. I can manipulate the DOM node. I can manipulate the contents. Whatever I want to, I can do. Now, if you want to know what are all the things that you can do, we have to look at the documentation. So api.jquery.com, right? api.jquery.com. If you go to api.jquery.com, you can find the complete API list available here, right? It has the complete API list available here. Now you can use any of these methods using which you can manipulate the DOM node. You can use any of those methods to manipulate the DOM node. Now I don't need to explicitly locate the reference of the DOM node and pass it to the jQuery function. What I can do, I can simply call this jQuery of, you can pass the ID, right, of the text box. You can say text name. You can pass it as a string, and when you pass it as a string, this will automatically get you the value. You see here? So you don't need to always locate a DOM node and then pass it to the jQuery function. You just pass a string, right? This string is what you call as a selector. This string is what you call as a selector, and the select, there can be 40 different ways by which you can pass the strings, right? You see here in the API list, scroll down, you will find selectors. Click selectors. Now these are all the selectors, more than 40, right? These are all the selectors that you can use to locate the DOM node. Go through these selectors when time permits, but ultimately this is what jQuery offers. Now let us first try solve this problem using plain simple JavaScript, and then I will convert it into jQuery, right? So how do you typically do this? Let us do this. Watch this. What we will do, we will say window dot add event listener of DOM content loaded, comma init, and then in the init function init, and here you will say where button greet is equal to document.getElementById, right? Document.getElementById of button greet, and then we will say button greet dot add event listener of click, comma on button greet click. And in on button greet click, what will you do? Function on button greet click. In this particular function, you will say locate the text box where text name is equal to document.getElementById of text name, and then where name is equal to text name dot value, and then generate the message where message is equal to I plus name plus comma have a nice day, right? Have a nice day, and then locate the div. So where div message is equal to document.getElementById of div message, and then you will say div message dot inner HTML is equal to the message, right? Typically this is how you solve the problem using JavaScript and raw DOM APIs. Let us check if this works. So I'm going to say Magesh and click greet. It says hi Magesh, have a nice day. Say Suresh, click greet. It says hi Suresh, have a nice day. Very good. Now I want to convert this into jQuery. Very simple. Now look at this. Document.getElementById. I don't need to do that, right? There is one more thing that you need to know. One is a function called jQuery. Now there is also an alias to this, another reference to the jQuery function, which is $. You see, the $ is also referring to the same function. So this is just to make your typing a little easy, a little comfortable, right? So here the author has given an alias to this, and that is the $. So what I can do, instead of calling jQuery, I'll say $of hash, which means locate the DOM node by the ID. But this doesn't return the raw DOM node. This returns a jQuery wrapper on top of it. So what I will do, I will prefix the variable also as $, so that you know when later you have to maintain your application, you know that this is a variable whose job or the variable is created to hold the reference of a jQuery object, right? The variable is created to hold the reference of the jQuery object. Okay, and then okay, so now this is a jQuery object. How do I attach the event handler? Very simple. I'll say $button greet dot click of this function, right? Dollar button greet of click of this function, right? Now I can actually simplify this a lot more. How? I don't need a reference. I will just locate the button and directly attach a event handler to the button. Okay, very good. Now let us look at this. So this will give me a dollar, and I can say hash text name, and this can be replaced with dollar text name. Okay. Now what is my value? Now this is a jQuery object. So typically what I will have to do, dollar text name dot val, right? You have to access the value attribute using the val method. Okay, very good. But now what I can do, I can simply replace this with this, right? I can simply replace with that. I don't need, okay, where message is fine. Now what is this? This is once again no document or element by ID. It is dollar of hash div message, right? Now dollar div message, and this will become not inner HTML equal to, this is dot HTML of message. Now once again I am not using the dollar div message anywhere else, so I can simply inline this. It is just a selector and dot HTML. Now you have only 3 lines of code. Actually you can replace this also, right? So you can take this and replace this. Okay, very good. Now am I using this function anywhere else? No. So what I can do, I can inline this function as it is right here itself. Now it's a personal taste whether you want to inline the function or not. It's up to you, right? But you can directly pass it. Now this function I am not using it anywhere else, so I can take this and inline this function directly here. Okay, very good. Now I don't need to do a document dot a window dot event listener of this. Instead, what I can do, I can say dollar of document dot ready, right? Dollar of document dot ready, which means I'm saying, hey, execute this function when the document is ready. Actually, you don't even need to type dollar of document dot ready. Simply pass a function to the dollar. It will automatically execute the function only when the document is ready, right? It will execute the function only when the document is ready. That's all. So here what you are saying that execute this function when the document is ready. Okay, what am I doing there? Locate the button, attach a click event handler, and in the click event handler I am saying get the text box contents, create a string out of it, and then locate a div and set its inner HTML with that particular string. So now whatever we wrote as 10-15 lines of code can be expressed in just 4 or 5 lines of code. A very crisp, simple, easy to use APIs that make your DOM manipulation code a lot simple. Okay, you got it, Rajendran? Okay, good. Now I'll share you some videos. If you want, you can go through those videos later. Vimeo.com. Just give me some time. I'll just give you. Okay, so this is the URL. You watch these 2 videos when time permits. Okay, so http://bit.ly/jquery-info. Right, I'm solving a slightly complex problem using jQuery, so that takes you through a decent introduction and a problem solving using jQuery. Go through it. That should help you. Right now, Now, all right. Now, let us take a slightly complex problem and solve it. So here this problem will not have what is it? jQuery. The focus will not be on jQuery. The focus will be primarily on how you are going to identify the responsibilities when you are building a rich internet application, right? What are you going to do to identify the responsibilities and address those responsibilities in your application, right? So that is pretty much what we are going to do now. So let us solve this problem, right? So model view. Now new file index.html. Now I am going to solve a very basic problem, simple problem, and then we will understand what is the challenge with that particular problem with our implementation, and then we will see what is the best way to solve that particular problem, right? What are the challenges and what is the best way to solve this problem, right? So let me quickly create the problem. The problem is writing a simple salary calculator using which the user can calculate what his salary is, right? Using which the user can calculate what his salary is at any point of time. Okay. So the UI is going to be something like this. So salary calculator plus a div.content having a div.field that has a label that says basic plus a text box that is input colon text hash text basic. Okay. Now div.field label HRA and input colon text hash text HRA, and then div.field label BA and input colon text hash text BA, and then div.field label tax tax plus input colon range as range tax min equal to 0, max equal to 30, value equal to 0, plus span tax, and this is where we want to display the tax. When the user selects a tax, we want to display it here, and then a button calculate value equal to calculate, and then field a label not label a div hash div result, right? Div hash div result, that is where we are going to display the salary. That is where we are going to display the salary. Okay. So now we have the HTML created, and this is where we want to write the script. Now let me take a copy of jQuery and make it available here. Let me take a copy of jQuery and make it available here. Now let us also bring in the jQuery script as well. Right? Now here is our text box. Let me define some styles here. So style is h1, border is 2 pixel solid blue color, comma space 0 pixel. Open it in the browser and see what do you see here. It doesn't show. Alright. Now comma 0 pixels doesn't show. Okay, good. Now this is going to be border top and like this, border bottom, and background color is light blue, padding is 10 pixels, right? A simple decent style. And then I'll say hash div result is font size is 28 points and color is red color, because that is where we are going to display the salary. Very good. Now let me say label is display colon block, and dot field is margin bottom is 10 pixels. Let us give some space at the bottom. So we have a decent layout created, and this is just the presentation part of it, right? Now what we want is the user should be able to um, uh, use it, right? So he should be able to type 10,000 and 2,000 and 3,000 and move this slider, and when he moves the slider the tax has to be displayed here, and when you click calculate, right, the result has to be displayed here. So that is the whole idea about this application. I am going to solve this problem quickly using Jquery. So save this, name this as style.css. Okay, now refer to that here. Link rel equal to style sheet, it is style.css. Okay, very good. Now let us start writing the code for this. So $of function, which means execute this function when the document is loaded, and then $of hash button calculate dot click. When the button calculate is clicked, please do something. What is that I want to do? I want to locate these text boxes, right? All these individual text boxes, I want to locate them, right? I want to locate all of these individual text boxes and access the values from them, right? And then I want to convert them into numbers and subject them into some calculation. Right? So that is what all we want to do. Now, right? So here is our div. Okay, good. Now we have this aligned properly. Now, since I'm going to convert each of the text box values into numbers, let me write a simple utility function for that. So string dot prototype dot toInt is equal to your function, and I think by now you know what is a prototype and what we are trying to do. Basically, I am trying to add a method to the string type, the built-in string type. So when you do this, now the toInt method will be automatically available to all the string types. Now obviously you are going to execute the method with the context of a string, so this would refer the string. So I can simply say return % of this comma 10, right? Return % of this comma 10. Okay, very good, we have done this. Now here it is going to be where basic equal to $of hash text basic dot val, this will return you the string, and then say to int, this will give you the value in number format. So all these things I have taken, and tax as well, right? Now let me quickly fix this. So this is HRA and DA, and this is tax. Similarly, this is text HRA and text DA, and this is range tax. Okay, very good. Where gross is equal to basic plus HRA plus DA, and then where net is equal to gross multiplied by 100 minus tax divided by 100, and then we will say $of hash div results dot HTML of the net. Very good. Now I also need to do one more thing. What is it? Whenever the range tax is changing, there is an event called change event, using which you can know when it is changing. Locate the span tax, right, dot HTML of this dot value, right, of HTML of this dot value. Good. Now we have added the behavior to our application, right? We have added the behavior to our application. Very good, excellent. Now let us check if this works. Let me reload the page. Go here, 10,000, 2,000, 3,000, and add a tax. Very good. See, when you move the slider, this label is, this span is getting displayed, and click calculate. it works perfectly fine, right? It works perfectly fine. So the application is working perfectly fine. But is this maintainable? So what I will do is, guys, I am checking in the code. I'm checking in the code. Take this, have a look at it for a couple of minutes, and let me know if you have any questions on whatever we have done. The code is checked in. Take a few minutes, 2 minutes, go through it, and let me know if you have any questions. Why string.prototype has created? It looks it is not used. We are using it. The $of text basic.val will return you a string. This will return you a string, and you are borrowing the strings method here. See here in the browser, right? Got it, right? Okay. Okay. Now, do you see any problem with the implementation? Do you see any problem with the implementation? It works, right? Functionality wise, it does what it is expected to do. But do you see any problem with this code? Yes. What is the problem? The problem is function is specific to button. Yes, the function is specific to button. Very good. You got it, Santosh. Right? Most importantly, let us say after 6 months of time, you want to apply a change in the salary calculation logic. Say, for example, you want to apply education cess. The education cess has to be has to be subtracted from your net. In your application, what you will look for? Will you look for a component that is responsible for calculating the salary, or will you look for a button click? Right? So we would typically look for a component that is responsible for calculating the salary. So in your office, if there is any discrepancy in your salary credit, in the salary that you have received, right? Who will you consult? Will you consult your HR or will you consult your security guard? Obviously, you will consult your HR, right? Why? Because you know that the HR is the one that is responsible for handling these issues, right? Unfortunately, in our case, there is no HR. Everything is being handled by the security guard. Look at this. You are processing the salary, right? You are performing the business logic inside button click. You are performing business logic inside button click, which may work, but in the long run, it will be very, very difficult for you to maintain. In the long run, it will be really difficult for you to maintain. So, what is the solution? The solution is extract this logic, make it as a part of a component that is responsible for calculating the salary, and this part should handle only the UI, right? How do you do this? Very simple. Let me quickly show you how you can do that. So let us create a constructor function, salary calculator, and here this component is responsible for representing a calculator as an entity. That's all. It doesn't do anything else, right? It doesn't talk to the UI, it doesn't talk to the user, it doesn't respond to user actions, nothing. All it does is it represents a salary calculator in the memory. That's all. All it does is it represents a salary calculator in the memory. Now, in order to represent a salary calculator, right, it should have the state and behavior. Let us define what are all the state. The state is basic, HRA, DA, and then tax, and then it also represents the salary, right? It also has a state of the salary. Okay, very good. Now what is the behavior? The behavior is here. So salary calculator dot prototype dot calculate equal to a function, and this is where we are going to have the behavior, where gross is equal to this dot basic plus this dot HRA plus this dot DA, and then where net is equal to gross multiplied by 100 minus this dot tax divided by 100. Okay, and then we will say this dot salary equal to net. Now we have a component that represents a salary calculator and we want to use it here. So I'll say where calculator is equal to new salary calculator, where calculator equal to new salary calculator, and on button click I want to do something. What is it? I want to populate all these values from in the calculator. Are you with me? You understand? And then you don't perform the operation, the calculator will perform the operation, and then once you perform this, take the salary from the calculator and show to the user. Take the salary from the calculator and show to the user. Now when you reload this, let us check if this works. So let us say 10,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5% tax, calculate, works perfectly fine. Now, how does it benefit? As such, functionality wise, there is not much of a difference. But how is it benefiting? The reason how it benefits, or the way it benefits is, tomorrow, when you want to change the salary calculation logic, you know exactly where to look for, right? So if there is a change in the calculation logic, you know where to look for, and if there is a change in the UI logic, you know where to look for, right? So this separation of concern is very, very important when you want to build an application that is easy to manage. Our application is a single page, one simple problem, very, very basic problem, and even in this problem you have scope for separating the responsibilities. So obviously when you build large scale complex applications, definitely you should be able to do all these things, right? Do you understand, guys? Okay, now what is this? This is what you call as your model, and what are these components called as? This component is what you call as your view, right? Now you actually wrote more code. But by writing more code, you are actually bringing in sanity to your code, right? And thereby it becomes very easy for you to manage. And most importantly, right, it is easy for you to test. I can, using Jasmine, I can simply create an instance of the calculator and then give the basic HRDA tags and then call the calculate method and then verify if the salary is calculated appropriately or not. Unit testing becomes very easy. But if you club this logic into the UI code, right, unit testing is impossible. You can only do integration testing or user acceptance testing, right? So by segregating the logic into its own model, its own class, it is very easy for us to subject that into automated unit testing. It is very easy for us to subject it to automated unit testing. Guys, are you following? Any questions? Very good, right? So looks like there are no questions. Now, if I have to draw a pictorial representation of whatever we have done, right? So it looks something like this. It looks something like this. What is it? So assume that here is your user, right? So here is your user, and this guy wants to perform some action. So the user wants to perform some action, and where is the action? The action is encapsulated in a model. The action is encapsulated in a model, right? So here is your actual salary calculator. So this is your user and this is your salary calculator. Now this is an in-memory model, right? The salary calculator is an in-memory model. So the user cannot directly interact with the in-memory model. So what you do, you give him a view, right? What you do is you give him a view. So it is using this view, the user is able to interact with the model. So what the user does now, the user performs an action to this particular view, and the view takes that information to the model. The model, so right? Do you understand, right? Right? So the user performs an action on the view, and the view sends that information to your model, right? Sends that message to the model. So that is the role of the view. So when you look at this, right? So when you look at the code that we have written, most intelligence, right? The model has to be intelligent. If you look at it, right? The model should know all processing logic. The model should take all decisions. The model should be intelligent. Whereas if you want to build views that are easy to manage, keep the views dumb, right? Keep the views dumb. The view should not know anything about the application. Why? Because the complete calculation logic is encapsulated in the salary calculator. So the role of the view is to simply act as a mediator between the end user and the salary calculator, right? Beyond that, it should not do anything else. Beyond that, it should not do anything else. So by acting as a mediator, right, it shouldn't know anything about what is happening behind the scene, and it simply receives the message from the user and passes on to the calculator. Now the view should not know anything about what is happening in the calculator. The view should not know anything about what is happening in the calculator. So that is what I meant as being dumb, right? You by keeping the view as dumb as possible, you are pushing the logic to the models, and thereby you achieve two things. Number one, you encapsulate logic in one place that is easy to test, and number two, it is very easy for you to accomplish changes at a later point of time in the future. Okay, now this may look very simple at the outset. The whole concept may look very simple when you talk about it, but when you go about implementing it, it brings in all sort of complexities. This very simple concept brings in all sort of complexities. So what is that concept? Let me reiterate. What is the concept? The concept is make the model intelligent. When I say intelligent, all processing should happen in the model, and make the view dumb. So when I say dumb, what it should do? It should not know anything about what is happening in the model, and it should simply act as a mediator between the user and the model. That's all, right? Very, very simple concept. But when we refactored the code, right? When we refactored the logic into the model, our goal was to accomplish this. Our goal was to accomplish this. But my question is, did we accomplish it completely? Or in other words, is the view dumb? Do you think the view is really dumb? By looking at the code, do you think the view is really dumb? At the outset, it may look so. Right? At the outset, it may look so. How so? I have pushed the complete salary calculation logic into the calculator. So the view does not have any intelligence. It is dumb. Right? At the outset, it may look so. But actually, it knows a lot about the model. But actually, it knows a lot about the model. The intelligence need not be in complex business logic. The intelligence need not be in if-then condition, for loop, while loop, etc. It need not be in expressed in core logic in code. Okay, it can even be in the sequence the code is executed. It can even be in the sequence in which the code is executed. For example, look at this. Look at this. When you look at the calculate method, just this calculator.calculate, does it reveal that it has a dependency on basic HRA, DA and tax? When you look at the calculator.calculate method, just the method alone, does it reveal that it has a dependency on basic HRA, DA and tax? Does it reveal that it has a dependency on basic HRA, DA and tax? No, right? But look at what we are doing in our view. We are populating the basic HRA, DA and tax before calling the calculate method. Now, what I can do, since explicitly there is no mentioning of the fact that the calculate method depends on basic HRA, DA and tax, I am taking this, dropping it here. Will my application work now? No, right? My application will not work. My application will not work, right? So only because I have a knowledge about the view, only because I have a knowledge about the model, I have written the code in this sequence. Right? Only because I have a knowledge about the model, I have written the code in this particular sequence. Are you with me? Right? Now think of it like this. Assuming that you don't know, you are responsible for writing the view. I am responsible for writing the model. So I have created a salary calculator class. I give you the class. Now the class is written in such a way that all you see is only the public interface. What is a public interface? You see in the calculator, you see that there is a basic member, there is a HRA member, there is a DA member, there is a tax member, there is a salary member, and there is a calculate method. That's all. You only see the public interface of that particular calculator. You don't know what is happening behind the scene. Even if you want to know, you cannot know. Right? Let's assume that there is no way you can understand what is happening in the calculate method. There is no way you can understand what is happening in the calculate method. With this very, very limited exposure to the salary calculator, if you are writing the view, when will you choose to populate the basic in the calculator? Under what event you will choose to populate the basic in the calculator. Will you wait for the button to click? Will you wait for the button to click like this? Right? This can't be done. Why? Because you don't know that the calculate method depends on basic HRA, DA and tax. So if you don't know the calculate method depends on basic HRA, DA and tax, when will you choose to populate the basic HRA, DA, tax? When will you populate to choose it? What I will do, I will play really safe. Because I don't know in what context the basic is internally used, what I will do, as and when the user enters the text box, I will update the model. Right? As and when the user updates the text box, I will update the model. I will not wait for the right opportunity. As and when the user performs an action, I will update the model. Are you with me? Is that clear? Now, that, right? So, don't wait for the right opportunity. Don't wait for the right opportunity. As and when the user performs an action, pass that information to the model, right? So, one simple way by which you can make your view dumb, right? One simple way by which you can make your view dumb is to make the view reactive in nature. Right? One simple way by which you can make the view dumb is by making it reactive in nature. So what do you mean by reactive? As and when something happens, you update the model. What is the opposite of reactive? What is the opposite of reactive? Anyone? Proactive. Right? What is the opposite of reactive? Proactive. When can you be proactive? You can be proactive only if you are intelligent. Only if you have some knowledge. Right? You can be proactive only if you have some knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the experience, you can only react. You cannot be proactive. Do you understand? Now, one way by which you can rip away any knowledge in the view is by making it reactive in nature. So don't wait for the right opportunity. Don't try to be proactive, right? Behave in a reactive fashion. So here in our code, if I want to make this reactive in nature, this is how it will be. So $of text basic dot change is a function where I will do something. Okay. Now that I will copy this, paste it, paste it, paste it. So this is going to be text HRA and this is text DA and this is range tax. Now copy each of this line of code and dump them here. Right? Take this and dump them here. Here, take this and put here. Now this also take it and put it. Right? Now look at the button. The button has become really thin. It is not being proactive. It is reactive. Your view is being reactive. So as and when something happens in the text box, it passes that information to the model. And when the button is clicked, it calls the model and says, hey, the button is clicked. Are you with me? Do you understand? So this is working perfectly fine. No issues. Guys, any questions? I am going a little fast. So let me know if you have any questions. I am stopping here. Good. Okay. So I'm assuming that there are no questions. Okay. Using change for everyone seems like a overhead. Like how? You are saying that it is and performance will get affected? Okay. Now see, this issue was there when we were using 512 MB machines or 1 GB RAM machines, right? Today we are talking about 16 GB RAM on the client side. On your laptops and desktops, we are talking about 16 GB RAM. Even on the phones, we have 2 GB RAM. Right? So there is no shortage of the CPU or the memory. Nevertheless, your browsers are also becoming really powerful. Right? Your browsers are also very, very powerful. So these things doesn't really take much. These things doesn't really affect the performance. Okay, good. Now, right, this is only one part of the story. Look at the other part of the story. When do you choose to display the salary? Does the calculate method say that whenever you perform the calculate, whenever you call the calculate method, right? Whenever you call the calculate method, the salary changes. Does the calculate method anywhere its public interface reveal that it has an impact on the salary? Right? Does it anywhere says that when you call the calculate method, the salary will undergo changes? Nowhere. Then why do you decide to display the salary after calling the calculate method? Because you know the fact that when you call the calculate method, the salary will change. This is being proactive. Okay, so if I should not do this in the calculate method, when will I update the salary? When will I choose to update the salary in the UI? As we did, like whenever the text box is changing, we updated the calculator. Similarly, what we should do, whenever the salary is changing, right, not when the button is clicked, it is whenever the salary is changing, you have to update the UI accordingly. Are you with me? Right? It should flow in the reverse direction also. Right? The communication should flow in the reverse direction also. So as a user, whenever you updated the text box, the view updated the calculator. Similarly, whenever the calculator salary is changing, you have to receive the information and then update the user accordingly. Are you with me? Do you understand? So the condition by which you decide to display the salary in the UI or update the salary in the UI is not when the button is clicked, but when the salary is changing. Are you with me? Guys, are you following? Okay, so now this is not how it has to be done. Okay, fine. Now I understand that this is not how it has to be done. If you look at the text boxes, the text boxes emit a change event by default, right? Built in. This infrastructure is built in. So I was able to comfortably subscribe to the change event to know when the text box is changing. But if you look at the salary calculator, how will I know when the salary is changing? How will I know when the salary is changing? How will the view know when the salary is changing? So definitely the salary calculator does not have the infrastructure required to let the view know whenever the salary is changing. So the infrastructure has to be improved. How? Let us look at this. Watch this. What I will do, let me add one more member. This dot on salary change by default is equal to null. It is equal to null. And then in the calculate method, after setting the salary, I will say if type of this dot on salary change is equal to a function, I am verifying if it is not equal to null, then invoke that. So this dot on salary change, invoke it. Okay. Now here, if you look at it, after creating an instance of the calculator, I will say calculator dot on salary change equal to a function and in this function I will choose to update the salary. Now save this, go back to the browser, reload it. Let us verify if this works. So 10,000, 2,000, 3,000, and give a 5% tax. Click calculate. Works perfectly fine. Right now, if you look at here, all this code, right? All this code. Actually, I can take this out. Take this and move it down. Right. So if you look at this code, all this code is about the communication in this direction. All of this is about the communication in this particular direction. It happens in this direction, right? So from the user performs an action in the view, and the view updates it in the model, So all these things happen in this direction, right? But if you look at this, it happens in the reverse direction. So whenever the salary is changing, right? Whenever the salary is changing, the model lets the view know that it is changing, and the view displays that in the user, to the user. Are you with me? Right? So this is reacting to user actions. Whereas this is, what is this? This is reacting to model changes. Other than that, if you look at the view doesn't do anything on its own. Right? Other than that, the view doesn't do anything on its own. Okay? But this is not complete. Now we will test this. How am I going to test this? See, you have the calculator. Let me increase the scope of the calculator to window so that I can access it in the console. Let's go back to the browser, reload it, Control Shift J, keep the console open. Okay, and then let me enter the data: 10,000, 2,000, 3,000. Give a 5% tax. Now don't click the button. Come to the console. You have access to the calculator. Now you call the calculate method on the calculator. You see now the salary is getting displayed. Make sense? So the reverse communication happens perfectly fine. Guys, this understanding is very important. I'm checking in the code. I'm checking in the code. Take a few minutes, go through it, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Very good. Now, you know what can happen? See, many often we will assume that our model can always be changed only through our view. Right? Our model can always be changed only through our view. Very often, not very often, most of the time, that's not the case. Your model, maybe today, when you are building the application today for the first release, the model will be changed only through your view. But as day go by, your model can be changed bypassing your view completely. Now, when that happens, your view and the model should be designed in such a way that even if the calculator is changing bypassing your view, it is the responsibility of the view to always reflect the current state of the model. Right? It is the responsibility of the view to always reflect the current state of the model. Okay? Now, how do you do that? So, for example, first let us show. I will show you the problem here. Now, look at this. When I call the calculator.calculate, say for example, let us change the tax to 10%, and now from here I say calculator.calculate. It very beautifully displays the correct salary. Okay, very good. But you know what can happen? This can happen. So calculator.basic equal to 20,000. Now calculator.calculate. You call calculator.calculate. Now you see what's happening. The salary is displaying appropriately, but not the text box. Right? You call calculator.calculate. The salary is getting displayed appropriately, but not the text box. Now your view is not completely in sync with the model state. This is another very, very important challenge. What is this? It is the view should, the most important thing is always, right? The view should always reflect the current state of the model at all times, right? Not once in a while, but at all times. So irrespective of what happens in the model, irrespective of who performs the action, irrespective of which attribute changes, it is the view's responsibility to keep it always synchronized, right? To keep it always synchronized with the state of the model. But unfortunately, in our case, it is not done. Now, there are two challenges in order to accomplish this. What are they? Point number one, not only the view should subscribe to this basic change. First of all, the calculator should emit an event whenever the basic is changing. Right? The calculator should emit an event. The way it emitted an event whenever the salary is changing, it should emit an event whenever the basic is changing. It should emit an event whenever the HRA is changing. It should emit an event whenever the DA is changing. Right? How will you write that infrastructure? First of all, for this, you should not expose the basic as a public member. Right? You should not expose the basic as a public member. Why? If I expose the basic as a public member, then I will not know when it is undergoing changes. Right? If you are a Java developer, if you write an employee class, you typically don't expose the employee ID as a public int employee ID. You don't do that. What do? You declare the employee ID as a private member, and then you expose getters and setters, so that you have better control over what comes in and what goes out. And most importantly, you get to know when it is undergoing changes, right? The same thing has to be done here also. I am going to make these changes only for basic, and we will see how we can optimize it. So the basic should not be exposed as a public member. Instead, I am going to do something like this, where underscore basic equal to 0. And then this dot get basic is equal to a function, and where we will say return underscore basic. Okay, very good. We'll also say this dot set basic equal to another function that takes a value. This is your setter, and you will say underscore basic equal to the value, and then trigger the change, trigger the basic change. Trigger the basic change. Okay. But how will I trigger it? I also need to have a member. So here we will say this dot on basic change. The way I have on salary change, here I will say this dot on basic change equal to null. Right? This is very ugly primitive implementation. We will improve this, but for now, right, just to explain the concept, this is sufficient. So here I'll say if type of on basic change, if type of this dot on basic change is equal to a function, then call that this dot on basic change. This dot on basic change. Look how that this dot basic equal to 0 has transformed into, you have a private member to hold the value, you have a public member to hold the event function, and you have a getter, you have a setter. In the getter, you return the value of the private member, and in the setter, you set the value of the private member, and also you check if there is an event listener for this particular event, and you call that particular event. Okay. Now, if I want to accommodate this, right, first my model has to change. It is no more dot basic, it is get basic. It is get basic. Okay, this is fine. Now in my calculator, I will have to write code something like this. I will say calculator dot on basic change equal to a function, and here I will say dollar of hash text basic dot val is what? Calculator dot get basic. Right? So whenever the basic is changing, get the basic from the calculator and set it as a value of the text box. Not just that, here also this will change. This is set basic of this value. Set basic of this value. Now let us go back here, reload this. First let us try the happy path, right? Straightforward approach. Whether it is working. Good, perfect, it is working. Now come back here and change this to 10%. And go to the console, call calculator.calculate. Works perfectly fine, right? So this is working perfectly fine. Now look at this, calculator.set basic of 20,000. Now when I call set basic of 20,000, you see the text box is updated appropriately. And now you call calculate.calculate, works perfectly fine, right? So what we had to do, we had to have a model, and that model has to have this infrastructure in order for the model to emit events. First of all, in order for the model to recognize that when it is undergoing changes, and then emit the events whenever it is undergoing changes. Emit the events whenever it is undergoing changes. Are you with me? Right? This I might have to write for HRA, DA, tax, salary. I might have to write for everything. Now when I do that, right, so let me show you, right, what does it take to write for all of them. Now this will go away, right? This will go away, you won't have this, but underscore basic, all instances of underscore basic will become underscore HRA, and all instances of on basic change will become on HRA change, and get basic will become get HRA. Are you with me? Right? Get HRA, and set basic will become set HRA, and on HRA change will go here and go here. Is there any logic change? Is there any logic change? Absolutely there is no logic change, right? The private member changed, and the on basic change has become on HRA change. Get basic has become get HRA. Set basic has become set HRA. There is absolutely no logic change, right? Now, do I have to really copy paste to create this infrastructure? You don't need to. Okay. You know what we can do? Look at this. How I am transforming this into a very generic infrastructure that can be used for all the attributes in one shot. That can be used for all the attributes in one shot. How? Look at this. Look at this. Let me create an object where underscore data equal to an object. This will contain basic is 0, HRA 0, DA 0, tax 0, and salary 0. And then I will write one one, is it like a Pojo class? More or less, yes, more or less, right? Now I'll write one generic purpose getter. So we'll say this dot get equal to your function. Give the name of the attribute. You give the name of the attribute name. I will say return underscore data of attribute name. Does it make sense? Right? Underscore data of attribute name. So one getter can be used for all the attributes. One getter can be used for all the attributes. Okay, very good. How about the setter? Let us write the setter. So this dot set equal to a function that takes the attribute name and the value, and we will say underscore data of attribute name equal to value. Now I have one get one set that can be used for any number of attributes, Now here I need to trigger the change for what? For the attribute name, right? Trigger change for attribute name. We will see how we are going to do it. Are you with me? Okay, very good. Now the way I created a container for data and getter and setter for the data, I will create another container for events. So I'll say where underscore event handlers is equal to once again an object that will have basic is null, HRA is null, DA is null, tax is null, and salary is null. And I will have a method using which the user can attach an event handler. So this dot add event listener, right? I am using the same method name. Nothing stops you from using it. So add event listener equal to a function. What is the name of the attribute? Give me the attribute name and the listener function. Give me the attribute name and the listener function. And I'll simply say underscore events of attribute name equal to the listener function. Done. Now, how do I know what is this one? I'll check where listener function is equal to underscore events event handlers of attribute name, and then if the type of listener function is equal to a function, if it is not null, then call the listener function. Just simply call the listener function. Are you with me? Right? So now you don't need this dot DA, this dot HRA, this dot salary, blah 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 blah. This infrastructure will take care of whatever you are looking for. And let us come here. This is not this dot get basic. This is let me change this to basic. Okay. Now all of this is going to become getter and a setter. So I'll say this is all this dot get of basic HRA, DA, and tax. Is that clear? And the salary is not this dot salary equal to, it is this dot set of salary comma the net. Now since the setter itself will trigger the event appropriately, I don't need this. I don't need this. Okay. Now let us modify the view to accommodate this change. So it is no more this dot set basic, right? It is no more this dot set basic. So let us write the old one. Now what is it? It is this calculator dot sets. Calculator dot set of basic comma, right? Do you understand? Oh my God, Santosh, that will be really difficult. I've gone. Okay, so what I did, instead of get basic and set basic, we wrote one setter and a getter. Right? We wrote one generic purpose setter and getter, and we use one data container for all the attributes. And since in JavaScript the objects are nothing but plain simple key value pair, you are able to generalize the setter and getter. And similarly, you also define a container for event handlers that will hold the listener function for each of the attributes, and that container is by default made private. So obviously the user has to have a way by which he can attach an event handler to any of this. So you write one method called add event listener, using which the user can subscribe to the change event of any of the attributes. And in the setter, when a particular attribute is changing, you get the listener function from this particular object. You say underscore event handlers of attribute name, and then you check if it is a function. It should not be null. If it is a function, then you invoke the function. Make sense? Santosh, is it clear?
I'm like listener function is a like dynamic value, right? Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
there is no name of like listener function. I was looking
Correct,
at this.
correct.
So okay.
So this is I am taking it from this particular object. Which object? The event handlers of basic. So now this value will be assigned, replaced by the view. So the view will assign a function here. How? I am going to show you, right? Okay. Now, right? So this is done. Set basic, set tax XRA. Now what will this be? This is not on salary change. What is this? This is dot calculator dot add event listener of basic comma this function. When the basic is changing, do this. And similarly, dot add event listener of when the HRA is changing, please do this. Are you with me? Right? Now, this is not, this is salary. This is salary and this is basic. This is basic. Get basic. There is no get basic. There is get of salary. There is only get of salary, and this is there is only the get of basic. There is only get of basic. Very good. Now let me copy this, paste it for HRA, DA, and tax. So on HRA we are going to say HRA, right? So let me change this. This is text HRA, and this is text DA, and this is range tax. So let me change this. This is, I'm sorry, this is DA and this is tax. Now actually, if you look at here, right, we have a range tax. When are we updating the span? Whenever the range is changing. No, right? You should not update the span whenever the range is changing. You should update the span whenever the calculator's tax is changing, right? The condition, the event when you decide to update has to be different, right? It has to be different. So that is what you do here. Now you see here, when you look at here, it is pretty straightforward. Whenever the text box is changing, update the calculator. Whenever the text box is changing, update the calculator. Similarly, whenever the calculator is changing, update the text box. Whenever the HRA is changing, update the text box, right? Now look at this. Now look at this. How this works. Let's go back here. Reload this. Unexpected purple line number 67. Control G 67. Okay. So here we had the semicolon. This should not be a semicolon. Okay. Very good. We are done. We are done. Now look at this. Look at this. Calculator dot set of basic comma 10,000. You see the text box is updating. Calculator dot set of HRA of 2000 updating. Calculator dot set of DA comma 3000 updating. Calculator dot set of tax comma 10% updating. Calculator dot calculate, right? It is calculating. So it works in both the directions appropriately. Now come here and then say calculator dot calculate. It calculates it and the correct salary is getting displayed here. Now it works in both the directions. Are you with me? Do you understand? I'm checking in the code. Have a look at it, please. Rajendran, we discussed about it on the first day. A single page application is where you have the complete UI loaded on the client side in one shot, and then the view transitions happen on the client side. Guys, did we discuss about this? Anyone? Did we discuss about rich internet applications and classical applications? No. On the first day, we discussed about a very general difference between a rich internet application and a classical web application. In the case of a rich internet application, you get the complete UI layer downloaded on the client side, and then all user actions that you perform are handled on the client side. The view transitions happen on the client side. The HTML generation happens on the client side. Whereas in the classical web application, everything is handled on the server side. Okay, good. Now, what is this? This is a typical event. Yes or no? What is this? This is a typical event. Whatever we have exposed in our model is a typical event. Now, what makes a proper event infrastructure? There can be more than one subscriber. An event is nothing but a publisher subscriber implementation, right? So one of the basic qualities of PubSub or publisher subscriber model is that there can be more than one subscriber. There can be more than one subscriber. Unfortunately, our model is created in such a way that it can have only one subscriber. How so? Look at this. Look at this. Now, let us take the same calculator. So I have the calculator. and I say add event listener. I want to know whenever the salary is changing. So I say add event listener for salary, a function. You say console.log salary changed just now, right? Salary changed just now. Now do this, and let's come here. Let us try adding the data, set the tags, and click the calculate button. When I click the calculate button, I get the message, but this is gone. This is gone. You see? Now, why? Because our subscription has replaced what was already there. Why? Because that is how we have written the code. What have you done? When you call the add event listener, you are taking underscore event handlers of attribute name, which is salary, and you say equal to listener function. You are overwriting what was already there. So the way we have written our code is such that you can have only one listener function, which is bad, which is wrong, right? So how else it should be? If I want to subscribe, if I want to accommodate multiple subscribers, then I will have to replace all these things with an array. And then my add event listener will be dot push this listener function. And this will not be one object, this will be an array. So listener functions of array, and then I will check listener functions dot for each. Write in a function, and in this function take one listener function at a time and invoke it. So if type of listener function is equal to a function, then call listener function, right? So this is a proper implementation, or at least a decent implementation of the publisher subscriber model. So now let us once again do this. You see, I am attaching a new event listener, and now let us go here, 10,000, 2,000, 3,000, give it 5% tax, click calculate. Now this is also displaying, and this is also printing, right? So now we have a proper infrastructure created so that our models not only can maintain the data, they can also let the user know whenever the data is changing. They can also let the user know whenever the data is changing. Here, who is the user? The view is the user. The view is the user. Are you with me? Right? Okay. Very good. Now, when this infrastructure helps, when does this infrastructure helps? Typically, right, in a rich internet application, right? Typically, what happens is, if you have a view or a model, whatever, right? So if you let's take a model. So if you have a model, right? The model need not always be represented in only one view. The model may be represented. The model may be shown in more than one view. The same model can be represented in more than one view. So this is your model, and this is one view, and this is another view. Possible. It is very well possible, right? And this is another view. This is very well possible. Now, this model can be manipulated by this view or this view or this view. And when that happens, right? When one view manipulates the model should let all other views know that it has undergone changes so that they can update themselves accordingly, right? One fantastic example of this is, once again, Gmail. Let me show you, right? So let me open Gmail. Select one of the mail, right? Select one of the mail. So I'm okay. So let me take a different mail altogether. Let us take social. Let me move this to primary. So I am in primary. Where is it? Okay, sorry. Okay. So let us keep it here. Let us go to social. So here is our mail. Right? Here is our mail. Now, you know what I can do? Open the mail in more than one window. So this is one window and this is another window. Now, the same mail is opened in three different places. The same mail is shown in three different places. What are those? So you see here, these two are two different views. It is the same mail. It is the same mail. This is one view. This is another view. Is that clear? Two views. And what you see in the background, this is another view. This is another view. Now, you see what we can do? From here, from one of these windows, I am saying mark as 100. From one of these windows, I am saying mark as 100. When you do this, look at what's happening here. When I say mark as 100, you see, this has become 100. Does it mean that this window is telling this window to update itself, update this particular row in a light color background and dark color font, bold font? No, that is not what is happening. What is happening? This is what is happening. So one view is asking the model to change itself to 100, and for which the model changes, which automatically the information about the change automatically reaches these two views and they also change accordingly, right? How many views are there? I'll show you. Watch this. Right? You see here. So leave that out. Now you see important. By default, these mails are not important. Let me mark it as important here. Click it. You see, this has become important here. This has become important here. Click this, unimportant. This has become unimportant here. This has become unimportant here. Now delete that particular mail. So let me delete the mail from here. See, this is gone from the background. The mail is gone from the background. And look at here. This has become, instead of inbox, it says the folder is trash. It says here also the folder is trash. Right? Now you need to have the model infrastructure prepared so that this is possible. Whatever we are doing is, whatever we witnessed is possible. And that is exactly what you have done here. Right? So a simple model that had 5 data members, basic, HRD, and tax, has been transformed into this complex structure because we wanted the model to let the subscribers know whenever it is undergoing changes. And I like to call these models as evented models. Okay? Or in other words, models that uses events as a medium through which it lets the views know whenever it is undergoing changes. Is that clear? Okay, you know what? Let's stop at this. I think this itself is a little too much. So let us stop at this. Tomorrow, today itself, I will before retiring to bed, I am going to upload the video, both the videos. So tomorrow, you watch the video before you come to the class, right? Please watch the video before you come to the class, because tomorrow we are going to address the view part. Tomorrow we are going to address the view part. But you need to understand the concept, right? What we are doing. Forget about the code. You need to understand the concept of the problem, what we are trying to solve, why is that a problem, and then what is a possible solution, and what is the approach that we are taking to solve that particular problem, to implement that particular solution, right? So you need to be very clear with that particular idea, right? So go through this code, go through the go through the video, right? Pause the video, go through the code, pause the video, go through the code. It will be great if you try this once, right? Keep pausing the video, try it by yourself, and see if you are able to understand what we have done, right? This doesn't come just by listening. You need to solve it at least once to understand exactly what we are doing. Okay, so attempt it before you come tomorrow. Tomorrow's class will be a little more complex than what we have just seen. Okay, so I'm going to stop now. You go through it and then come back tomorrow. We'll discuss more. Right? Was the day useful? Was the discussion useful today? Okay, right. So thank you. We'll meet tomorrow.